We're often told that love is something you have to find. But what if the secret to a real, lasting connection isn't about finding the perfect person, but about mastering the roles we play? Today, we're breaking down Jay Shetty's 8 rules of love to explore that very idea. You know, from the moment we're young, we absorb all these scripts about what love is supposed to look like. We see it in movies, hear it in songs, we even learn it from our family traditions. These stories, they kind of give us a blueprint, a set of expectations for how our own love stories are supposed to unfold. While Jay Shetty argues that these unconscious scripts, they often do more harm than good. They can actually lead us away from a genuine connection and push us toward these big, performative gestures that, sure, they might look great, but they completely miss the point of what our partners actually value.
He actually shares a very personal story to show what he means. When he proposed to his wife, Raji, he went all out. He thought he was creating the perfect movie moment, you know? A horse-drawn carriage along the Thames in London, a surprise a cappella group, the whole thing. He was following that romantic script to a T.
But here's where the real world came crashing in. That grand gesture, turns out Ratty isn't really a fan of them. The horses? She had a pretty bad allergic reaction and broke out in hives. The specially planned food arrived cold, which is a huge miss for someone who loves food. And that diamond ring? It wasn't even her favorite gemstone. It was a clear and probably very itchy sign that he was playing a role from a fairy tale, not connecting with the real person right in front of him. So this brings us to a really crucial point. The journey to authentic love, it doesn't start with finding the one. No, it starts with mastering the first and most important role you will ever have, the role of just being yourself. And to really get that right, you first have to learn how to be alone.
And Shetty makes a really important distinction here. He's not talking about loneliness, that painful feeling of being isolated. He's talking about solitude, which is the intentional practice of spending time with yourself. He calls it a school for learning. It's a space where you can figure out what you actually think and feel, away from all the noise and influence of others. It's not about escaping the world. It's about building a solid foundation of who you are, so that when you do enter a partnership, you're bringing a whole person to the table, not just an empty space that's waiting to be filled.
And you know, this isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it's actually backed by research. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who's famous for his work on the concept of flow, he found that a lot of talented people failed to develop their creative skills for one simple reason: they can't stand to be alone. The most effective practice, the deepest work, is almost always done in solitude. So avoiding it, it literally holds us back. So how do you actually do this? Well, Shetty offers a practical solo audit. He suggests things like traveling alone to see if you're decisive or more spontaneous when left to your own devices, or maybe trying a new job, even just volunteering, to see which parts of your personality stay the same in different environments. You could even do something as simple as going to a movie by yourself, just to form an opinion without being influenced by someone else's reaction. It's all about building that core self-assurance. Okay, so once you're grounded in that first role of being yourself, then you can consciously step into a partnership. And this is where Shetty introduces a new and I think profound role, seeing your partner not just as your lover, but as your guru. Now, when he says guru, he doesn't mean a teacher who has all the answers or someone who's trying to mold you into their own image. Not at all. In this context, a guru is someone who creates an environment of trust and support. They see your unique path, and they help you become a better version of the person you already are, without ever trying to control your journey. There's a powerful Zen story that just captures this idea perfectly. A master asked his student, who was a woodcarver, to make a Buddha statue. When the student came back with this beautiful, perfect carving, the master just took it and threw it out the window. The lesson wasn't about creating some external object, it was about the inner work. The master wanted the student to carve the Buddha within himself. In a relationship, that means helping your partner discover what's already inside them. This means you really have to fall in love with the process. The wins, the anniversaries, the big achievements, that's just 0.01% of your life together. The real relationship, the real love, it lives in the other 99.99%. It's in the daily practice, the struggles, the learning, the hard work. A true partnership is about loving that entire journey.
And a huge part of being a guru for each other is learning how to handle the tough stuff. Conflict, criticism, and feedback. The goal is to approach these moments not as opponents in a fight, but as a team that's working together on a shared problem.
Shetty gives this brilliant, everyday example with laundry. Instead of a critical, fixed mindset attack like, when you do the laundry, our clothes are always wrinkled, which just makes the other person defensive, you can try a growth mindset approach. Something like, "Hey, I really appreciate your help with this. I found a little trick to avoid wrinkles. Could we try that, or do you have a better idea?" See how that completely changes the dynamic from an accusation to a collaboration? This same mindset applies to supporting your partner's personal goals and their dreams. The question isn't, "What's taking so long?" That's just loaded with pressure and judgment. The question is, "How can I help you?" It's a simple shift, but it transforms your role from a critic into a genuine teammate.
So the final role Shetty introduces is maybe the most transformative of all. It's about expanding our idea of love beyond just one single relationship. It's about shifting our whole perspective, moving from seeing love as something we get to seeing it as something we give, as a fundamental way of life.
He shares this story from an ashram that really drives this home. A teacher asks, if you had $100, would it be better to give it all to one person or to give $1 to 100 people? And while changing one person's life is obviously powerful, the teacher's point was this: the more people you help, the more you expand your own capacity for love. You practice it, and so it grows.
You know, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by the scale of the world's problems and feel like our small actions just don't matter. But Shetty remembers a teacher on a beach in India who is throwing stranded fish back into the ocean, one by one. Someone asked him what the point was since he couldn't possibly save them all. And the teacher just replied, "It's only one fish to you, but to that fish, it is everything."
And that really brings us to the final, transformative question. What if we stop thinking of love as some kind of treasure hunt, something to be found and then possessed? What if instead we saw it as a role we choose to play every single day? Because by shifting our focus from seeking love to actively giving it, we unlock its greatest gift, the ability to experience it everywhere, with everyone, all the time. Subscribe to the Book Breakdown for more powerful book summaries that can change the way you think.